hits 11 and the headlines come in.
The late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
And now they've abandoned him. And what for? A pair of eyelashes and a black T-shirt.
Do eyelashes and a black T-shirt need a new mandate? With Andy Burnham's coronation getting closer, the electorate seems to think a new Prime Minister needs a general election. Is the public right? Also tonight...
This has to be a turning point. This has to be a turning point for maternity care in this country.
The latest report into maternity failings shows hundreds of mothers and babies died unnecessarily at the hands of the NHS. Does the Socialist National Health Service need a fundamental overhaul in order to save lives? Plus, who guards the guards themselves? What happens when the world's most powerful accountability bodies face questions about their own transparency? Why is a lack of transparency so damaging to democracy? And... heat as Britain enjoys 93-degree sunshine. An extreme weather warning has been issued. But what is the proper etiquette for managing a heat wave? It is, of course, a long drink and a double-breasted suit. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most preternaturally perspicacious panel, the former Conservative MP, Steve Baker, and the political consultant and former Labour candidate, Kevin Craig. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day. It's the News Bulletin with a charismatic Katie Bowen.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. Your latest GB News headlines at 8:02. Today has been declared the UK's hottest June day on record, with a new high of 36.1 degrees Celsius recorded in Gosport, Hampshire. A red weather warning for extreme heat is in place for parts of the country, with the Met Office advising the elderly and vulnerable to stay indoors and the public to reconsider lengthy travel plans. Humid conditions are also expected to persist well after sunset, bringing the prospect of tropical nights to parts of the UK where temperatures will remain above 20 degrees Celsius. Today's temperature breaks the previous record set in the summer of 1976. Elsewhere, more than 500 mothers and babies suffered potentially avoidable harm or died due to deeply embedded systemic failures at the Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust. A review led by senior midwife Donna Ockenden has concluded. The inquiry found leaders at the Trust knew there were serious issues in its maternity department going back years, but failed to take action to prevent more deaths. 520 mothers and babies suffered potentially avoidable harm or death, including 94 babies who were stillborn. Chairman of the Trust, Nick Carver, has apologised unreservedly to the women and families affected, saying that the Trust will work on a meaningful apology and further improvement plans. A train driver who died in a crash near Bedford had passed a red signal moments before the collision, investigators say. More than 100 people were injured in the collision, which saw one train smash into the back of another on the same line, with 53 people remaining in hospital as of Monday. The driver who died at the scene was named as 60-year-old Sean Burton. And Sir Keir Starmer has defended his record as Labour leader in his first Prime Minister's question since announcing his resignation. Downing Street has also indicated today that Sir Keir Starmer intends to stay on as a backbench MP for the rest of this Parliament, despite standing down as leader. At Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch challenged the Prime Minister to say whether he felt betrayed and let down by his own party, as well as asking about the long-awaited defence investment plan.
2 years ago, I walked into Number 10 and found a broken economy, broken public services and broken trust in politics. Because of our decisions, my decision, the country is moving in the right direction, a stronger and a fairer Britain, ending austerity, investing in our public services, the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years, more rights for workers, more rights for renters, standing with Ukraine, Britain's reputation restored and 500,000 children being lifted out of poverty. Change promised by a Labour government, fought for by a Labour government.
Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Jacob.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. It's very interesting that opinion polls are showing that voters want a general election if there's a change in leader, if Mr Burnham becomes Prime Minister. 48% say there should be a general election against 35% who think there shouldn't be. 17% don't know. When you look at the next question, should there be a contest for the Labour leadership, only 23% want Burnham unopposed, double that number want a contest, with a third not knowing. Now, what's interesting about that second poll is the argument against a contest is that it causes delay, that there's indecision and so on and so forth. But I think voters want to know more about whoever it is who is going to lead them, and voters want to make that decision. I know the technicalities of the Constitution. I know that we're a parliamentary democracy and that the Prime Minister is the person who leads the biggest party in Parliament and can maintain the confidence of that party. Gosh, I've probably known that since I was a 5-year-old. It's not a difficult or complex constitutional point. But our Constitution evolves. Did you know that the post of Prime Minister was not referred to formally in a government document until Disraeli signed the conclusions of the Congress of which Congress was it? Congress of Berlin in 1878. And the Prime Ministership began in 1721. So we had all that period with the Prime Minister being an informal post. It wasn't recognised as an official government position until it was brought into the order of precedence at the beginning of the 20th century. So for the best part of 200 years, it didn't formally exist. Now, it does formally exist, and formally exists on the basis of a vote for a leader of a party at an election. Not the constitutional theory, but the constitutional fact. Voters are swayed not by the charisma and the genius of the local candidate, about whom they may well know remarkably little, particularly if that candidate is not an incumbent. They vote for the leader who impresses them most. And I think that when people look back at those who got it unopposed, be it Theresa May or Gordon Brown, they think that didn't really work. They weren't tested. We didn't know anything about them. And then they turned out not to be successful prime ministers. And I think the electorate is right to be jealous of its prerogative to decide who the prime minister is. There's a great line from Dr. Johnson about how the king gave us a minister in Walpole and the people gave us a minister in Pitt the Elder. Nowadays, it's the people who give us the minister, and the people should have the choice. As always, let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. But now I'm very pleased to be joined by the chief political correspondent of the Times, Aubrey Allegretti, and my panel, the Tories' Steve Baker and Labour's Kevin Craig. Aubrey, thank you for coming in. The other point I think is a problem potentially for Andy Burnham is that this sort of blots his copybook before he's started, and that what he really needs, what Labour needs, is a bounce from him coming in. And that will be less if people think this is a slightly stitched-up situation.
I think he's in quite a difficult position insofar as he has to, for the sake of being able to sort of fend off the calls to call a general election immediately, try and commit as closely as possible to just delivering Labour's 2024 manifesto, effectively saying, I'm not going to diverge from what you all voted for in 2024, because of course people don't vote for prime ministers, they vote for their MP, and their MP is signed up to a party which publishes a manifesto. But the issue is that is clearly not what he wants to do. He's got much more radical ideas about what he wants to do to the country, and I think it's really interesting to fast forward a year or two to whenever he decides to call the election, if indeed he becomes Prime Minister, and think about what kind of platform he's going to use to speak to the country on. He can still, bizarrely, be the Prime Minister for the next couple of years and stand on a platform of change, because he can argue he's not actually been able to implement a lot of the ideas he wanted to over these last few years. That's quite a strong, tantalising position to the electorate, potentially.
Do you think it is? Because if for 2 years he's sticking to what Starmer was doing, which has failed, and to the fiscal rules that Starmer has got that have made it very difficult to balance the books and have led to increases in taxation, that his popularity won't then get to a point where he will be able to get that mandate. And if I were him, I'd be looking at Gordon Brown, who would have won an election in the immediate aftermath of becoming leader. There was huge Brown bounce. But, of course, that drifted away.
Yeah, and I suppose the difference with Gordon Brown was that the handover happened later during the Parliament, so it was kind of easier to call the election then. Now we are less than 2 years in. I think voters might sort of rightly turn around, especially if he sort of called it, and say, well, hang on, we'd kind of rather you just at least try to sort of get on with governing the country. There's also polling out today that shows that I think Andy Burnham has a more than 50% sort of people who don't have yet a favourable or unfavourable view of him. So the jury is still out, and it may be that actually, you know, it moves in one direction or the other, but I think he'll be thinking that there's a big opportunity there to be able to try and convince people that he is a popular person. And of course, the polling that you referenced, well, it's obviously, I think it was 47% that wanted a general election now. It's a plurality rather than a majority.
Yes.
I've seen all sorts of people screenshotting Keir Starmer's posts on X a couple of years ago where he said the Prime Minister must call a general election now. They have no mandate. So they are completely hoist by their own petard. But I think, yeah, Andy Burnham's best sort of answer to those calls is to stick as closely to the manifesto as possible.
And what are you seeing in terms of the analysis you're doing and the people speaking to in terms of a Burnham bounce? Obviously, the polling isn't showing that yet, but people are beginning to think he will be the next Prime Minister. Are you hearing anything that indicates there is a Burnham bounce in process?
I mean, it's hard to say because the transition at the earliest point won't come for basically another 3.5 to 4 weeks. So yes, while people are sort of starting to presume he's the heir apparent, it will probably take a little bit longer for people to start to sort of stress test some of the policies that are being trialled. And they can cover everything, of course. You know, he's got this sort of blueprint for the economy, which is known as Manchesterism. But unless you're from Manchester, you probably don't know what that looks like. And so he's going to have to be very heavily tested over the next few weeks. Some of Keir Starmer's allies are really bitterly frustrated. They feel like he was forced out completely unfairly. And I do wonder if we're sort of underpricing the chance. I know this sounds a bit facetious and over the top, but like in a year's time, Keir Starmer's allies are saying the genie's out of the bottle now. If Burnham challenged Starmer, that doesn't make him immune from challenge in the future. So it's not going to be a nest of singing birds for the next 3 years.
A bit, dare I say, like the Tory party, that if you get rid of a leader, you go all the way back to Margaret Thatcher, that leaves bad blood, and you keep on getting rid of leaders because there's always somebody who feels that the last leadership coup was improper.
That is absolutely the risk. The sort of flip side to that is, obviously, everyone remembers the sort of tumult of the last Parliament and the 3 Conservative leaders, but if you sort of rewind before that, Boris Johnson became leader in the middle of a Parliament, taking over from Theresa May, and then significantly increased his share in Parliament to get a majority in 2019. That's what Labour hope that they're going to be able to achieve now, that sort of regicide, rather than the 2 that happened after.
Kevin, you've been very loyal and supportive of Keir Starmer. I think you admire him and think highly of him, and I was in the same position in relation to Boris. It does leave bad blood when a leader is forced out in this way, doesn't it?
It does, but there was a really good phrase used this week by the editor of Labour List, which is the sort of in-house Labour Party news outlet, where I'm also on the board there. And the phrase really resonated with me, which is one and done, which is that sensible people in the Labour Party remember that on page 4 of the Labour Party manifesto, which, Steve, you'll remember is a great read, and on page 4 it says an end to chaos. And you can only do this once. And there's a lot of people in the Labour Party who, yes, actually think that Keir Starmer should have been given longer and have got views on that, but we are where we are. One and done, Jacob. Because if you do this again, then you are doing exactly what your party did.
But you get the bad blood almost inevitably because the Chancellor will be changed. Lots of people will lose their jobs. They resent that. You get murmurings on the backbench. It's quite hard for a new leader to unite things.
It is, Jacob, but, you know, what I constantly ask people in the Parliamentary Labour Party to do is to put the bigger issues above themselves or their own egos or whatever they've been through personally and think Labour can only do this once in this parliamentary term. Andy Burnham, I think there's some very good analysis there from Aubrey about actually that he might go early in due course if things go well. But you can't keep doing this. And I will say one thing, whatever you think about him, the way that Keir Starmer, who could have taken part in a leadership contest, he was on the ballot already, but he put the country first in that speech on Monday. And I admire him very much for that. Andy Burnham will be the Prime Minister now. I don't believe he will face a challenge. And then he's got a chance to really turn this around.
Nothing in life became him so much as the leaving of it. Steve, should Labour learn anything from our travails?
If they've got any wisdom at all, they will do, yes. I think this one-and-done advice is good advice. But, my goodness, I regret all those travails. Most undesirable. Bad for business to have regime uncertainty.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid Prime Ministers, it's painful to talk about, but Prime Ministers exposed a flank. You know, Boris and parties and what he said, and Liz and the bond market. And, you know, if you expose a flank, Keir and Mandelson, if you expose a flank, your opponents take every opportunity to exploit it. And in this age of social media, with everything being so accelerated, very difficult.
And that your real opponents are always in your own party, not opposite you in the chamber.
Yeah. Well, you're such a commanding historian, you will know better than me, but someone said your opponents are opposite and your enemies are behind. And I think that is very true. You know, obviously I've done my own bit of organising in various ways, but I've only been responsible for working against one Prime Minister actively, but it was a matter of great regret, and I think Kevin's point about one and done would be wise advice for them. Be interesting to see if they pull that off.
I hope so, Steve.
But isn't this the difference that with Margaret Thatcher and with Theresa May, there was a big principle at stake. It was the poll tax with Margaret Thatcher, it was Brexit with Theresa May.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that Andy Burnham stands for that is different from Keir Starmer. There isn't some massive ideological gap.
That's a really good point, actually, because, funnily enough, Jacob, I brought this evening for you one of Andy's key leaflets from the Makerfield election. And one of the reasons, which he won handsomely, by the way, is some great information about what he's done really well, why he's so popular up there. I knocked on doors for him. He's a really popular bloke. And it's free bus travel for young people. Labour's doing that. More police officers. Labour's doing that. Partnerships with business. Labour's doing that. Safer streets. Crime down year on year in Manchester. Homicide down nationally under the Labour government. So you make a great point. But I think what
that's all the sort of thing that Starmer would want to put on his leaflets.
But indeed it is. But I think here's the issue. We live in a presidential age, and I thought that today Kemi was a little bit ungenerous with the way she conducted herself at PMQs. We might debate that. But the ability to tell a story about where you're taking this country, the emotional intelligence, the energy, that's important,
well, I'm afraid we're going to move on, so thank you very much, Aubrey, and to my panel. What have we got next? The latest report into maternity failings shows hundreds of mothers and babies died unnecessarily at the hand of the NHS. Does the Socialist National Health Service need a fundamental overhaul in order to save lives?
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts,
5 opinions,
5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy
tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we were discussing Burnham's lack of a mandate, and the mail logs have come in. Dave says the only Burnham bounce we want is to bounce Labour out. And Carmel says, how unparliamentary of Ken Badenoch to try and distract from her low vote in the by-election by throwing boulders at anti-Burnham with personal insulting comments. Well, we didn't do badly in the by-election. We won in Aberdeen South, as she pointed out. And Anita says, I read that Andy Burnham is a Catholic. There shouldn't be a Prime Minister who is a Catholic, as I understand. Jacob, is this correct? No, it's not. You are allowed to be Catholic and Prime Minister, but under the 1829 Catholic Emancipation Act, you are not allowed to make appointments in the Anglican Church. So a Catholic, as Prime Minister, has to give the appointments of bishops and various other posts within the Church that belong to the government to another minister to do, or to advise the King to do, more strictly speaking. So I hope that settles that. More than 10 years after the first major NHS maternity scandals, today's Nottingham Review has revealed the largest maternity care failure in NHS history. More than 500 mothers and babies suffered avoidable harm or death, while investigators found integral failures, a toxic culture, and repeated warnings that went unheeded. In recent years, similar failings were exposed at Morecambe Bay, Shrewsbury and Telford, and East Kent. The Health Secretary, James Murray, has promised that this time action will be taken.
This has to be a turning point for maternity care in this country. Now, I don't want to say to families today that we are going to simply accept all the recommendations and then those recommendations sit on a shelf and don't get put into action. But I also want families to know that all of the recommendations, all of those important recommendations in the report today will go into the task force that I am chairing, which by the end of this year will produce a comprehensive action plan of what change we will make.
But after years of inquiries, apologies and promises of reform, is the real solution that the National Health Service needs fundamental structural change to stop these tragedies recurring? Is it a socialist system that is failing? Let me go to my panel, Steve Baker and Kevin Craig. Steve, this worries me greatly because as a constituency MP, some of the saddest cases one dealt with, obviously, were maternity issues where things had gone wrong and babies had died. Yeah. And it always seemed as if the institution cared more about the institution than the grieving parent, and that we've got more conveyed in 2005. Now, the Nottingham inquiry covers a period long after 2005, and 500 people have been involved. It's structural, isn't it? It's cultural about the relationship between a public institution and the patient.
It absolutely is, just as you say. The structure of incentives appears to be wrong. If I may refer back to Wickham. So in the 2010 to 15 Parliament, I had to keep a dossier of never events, things which should never happen, including deaths. And I ended up using my voice in Parliament to force the Trust into special measures and something called the Keogh Review, since when, of course, it's been much improved. But at the time, the Trust leadership really wanted me to celebrate successes. I would show something terrible which had happened, and they'd redirect me to some success. It was really horrific. We meet a constituent who suffered, in one case, the family of a man who died, and to find you were being redirected to something else, it's, whoa, no, stop, this is the problem right here. And I do think you're absolutely right. There's something structural about the system of incentives, because I'm very clear in my own mind that when doctors, nurses, midwives go into their profession, I bet every day they want to do a great job. And many of them do, but somehow it's going wrong, and it must be the structure of incentives around good people, putting them in a position where somehow they end up neglecting the wishes of parents or the worries of parents.
Kevin, one of the things Jeremy Hunt tried to do, which I thought was really sensible, was to get away from a blame culture and be like the airlines, so that when things went wrong, it was looked at in a non-blame attitude, which has made airlines stunningly successful and safe. But in the NHS, it always looks as if they wait until the inquiry to admit that things have gone wrong, and that the natural instinct is to cover things up.
I think there's a huge issue, isn't there, about legal costs in the NHS. The amount of money, our money, collectively, that's paid out every year in damages to people who've suffered. I think we've all got stories, either personally or in you two constituents. But I think the interesting thing about how you frame this story tonight, Jacob, is whether or not you think that a healthcare system based on tax funding or one that has an insurance component can deliver better outcomes. And I don't think there's any evidence
It's not tax funding that is the issue. It's that all the provision is state provided. Yeah. I think you can have free at the point of use with more independent providers who are then in a different relationship. Because where I think the NHS fails is that it is organised structurally for the producer, not for the patient. And that an organisation that the money flows with the patient is structured for the patient. And that's the key change that I would be advocating.
I mean, I think, interestingly, I would say that the NHS for some time, in fact, I would like to think hasn't been organised for the institutions. I think, even to give him his due, Jeremy Hunt, as a Tory health secretary, and then Wes Streeting latterly, talk about putting patients first. But I think the bigger issue is that the scale of it, you are going to get horrific instances like this, and this one is about culture and care, not ideology or funding, I think.
But I think the culture comes from the fact that it is ultimately producer-led, and of course people say they put the patient first, but if your structure is organised around funding for an institution, then what you need to do is protect the institution rather than the patient, and it's just the fundamentally wrong structure. It's not about payment. I think free at the point of use is something you can afford to do in another way.
Yeah, but do we think that there's any evidence? I'm interested in Steve as another former minister. Do we think there's any evidence that a system funded in the way we fund our NHS versus an insurance-based system delivers better clinical outcomes?
Well, if viewers are interested, the Prosperity Institute's got a project they've just launched on healthcare, and the Institute of Economic Affairs just not long ago had a very considerable report on this. But the truth is that our outcomes are not as good as they should be. Other systems elsewhere in the world have better outcomes. I remember there was one news story that the NHS was being celebrated for its high performance, and it was high-ranked across a range of measures, except outcomes. And it would be easy to mock such a story, except for the human cost is so profound, especially in this case, when it's babies. And we should take really seriously and be incredibly objective. Everybody wants to make sure that the public get great quality healthcare and free at the point of use. And that's what we should do.
And to Steve's point, we have fallen down the league tables in terms of baby mortality. We're below Poland now, and we used to be very well ahead. And to Steve's other point, the hospital in my constituency is now under new management, and I think much better management, but it was an underperforming hospital. And its defence was, well, we'd met all our financial targets. But yes, they'd met none of their clinical ones.
Yeah,
and it's,
nobody would, sorry to interrupt you, but I think we would all agree, any thinking person would agree that that sort of voice from an institution is madness. And in some areas, the NHS has been making improvements, whether it's waiting times or certain outcomes, but it's not perfect. And we today, in the case of the Ockenden report, are united in finding the failings flabbergasting. But the NHS, I think there is a difference, and some of those institutions that Steve mentioned, I might gently guess they come at this from a particular perspective, which is that we do need to move to a model more akin to other countries. And I don't think that we do. I
just think it's so much worse than this, I'm afraid. And I listened to the Secretary of State, and he's a decent man, and he said the right thing. But we've heard all that before. I've heard Tory ministers say it, Labour ministers say it, and we will have another report in 4 years' time from another hospital where lots of babies have died.
You know,
I think it just needs so much more oomph than it looks as if the government's willing to do.
I want to really answer that directly. So over the years, I've been accused of being ideological time and time again. But this is not about ideology. It's about surveying other countries and seeing how they've done. The IEA, their report in particular, it's very little ideology. It's about comparator countries. How could we do better?
Thank you to my panel. Coming up in just a moment, quis custodiet ipsos custodes. You've been waiting for me to give it to you in Latin. Who guards the guards themselves? What happens when the world's most powerful accountability bodies face questions about their own transparency? Why is a lack of transparency damaging to democracy? Thank you.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The exceptional heat continues over parts of France for the next few days at least. Meanwhile, 1 or 2 thundery showers possible in Sardinia and some wet weather heading to Portugal. Most of the eastern end of the Mediterranean, though, dry and sunny. Small chance of an isolated shower inland over Greece. Chance of some heavy showers over Sardinia, as I said, but much of northern Italy dry and sunny. Southern Spain also dry and sunny, but some showery rain heading its way into Portugal, affecting Lisbon and Porto. Temperatures back on the rise in Rome for the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, hope you're doing okay. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. And now the extreme heat, the record-breaking heat, will continue through this evening, overnight and into tomorrow. High pressure continuing to bring largely fine weather, lots of sunshine by day, and we are tapping into, dragging in hot air from the near continent, which is why temperatures are so high, both by day and by night. We have a couple of extreme heat warnings out at the moment, an amber across much of England and Wales, and also a red one across some central southern parts of England and southern Wales, all valid until the end of Thursday. Looking at the weather, and there's some rain across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening and overnight. That's going to spill into parts of northern and western Scotland. Otherwise, it's going to be largely dry. There is some low cloud coming into some North Sea coastal parts. The odd pocket of mist and fog can't be ruled out. But one thing that we really need to highlight is how warm it is again going to be. Perhaps a bit fresher towards the east, but in the west, southwest, temperatures holding up a few degrees above 20 Celsius, so uncomfortable for sleeping. More wet weather across parts of northern, northwestern Scotland through tomorrow. The rain could turn a bit persistent, maybe even heavy at times. Across the rest of the country, however, again, it is going to be a largely sunny day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures are going to rise. Mid to high 30s, 38, 39 Celsius could be possible, which is exceptionally hot. Into Friday, and it's worth highlighting that there will be some hefty showery rain affecting some northern parts, particularly during the morning. A lot of that will clear away, but for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, that rain's going to linger here. Could be quite intense for a while. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine by the afternoon, and whilst there is something a little bit fresher coming in from the west, central eastern parts are going to stay very hot. In fact, into the weekend, eastern parts will still be pretty hot. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we'll see something a bit more changeable and more comfortable, perhaps.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Who guards the guards themselves when powerful institutions investigate others? Who is watching them? The Information Commissioner's Office, the watchdog responsible for transparency and freedom of information, told its staff its chief was on leave while he stepped aside on full pay during an investigation into allegations of sexual harassment, bullying and discrimination. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, has been suspended after findings of serious misconduct linked to sexual abuse allegations. As both of these organisations are responsible for transparency and accountability, questions are emerging about how much was kept quiet. Why is the lack of transparency so damaging to democracy? Well, let me go to my panel, Steve Baker and Kevin Craig. How much can you tell people? Because people can be found not guilty, but should you let them know at the earliest stage? Should you let staff know that there are serious allegations? Because you may get more allegations coming forward if you do.
Yeah, but as long as you say that you're very clear on whether someone's innocent or not. I mean, I remember a Conservative MP, Andrew Rosendale, who was out of Parliament for almost 2 years on accusations, subsequently proven innocent. So I think, you know, this is a really important story, and the regulators, I don't trust them to regulate themselves, Jacob. So I'm quite worried by this story.
And you therefore think there should be an external regulator?
100%, 100%.
Because the ICO Commissioner has huge powers. He determines freedom of information requests. He can, with others, approve fines of people who break the data protection rules. And yet he's investigated by his own team, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's a real anomaly, isn't it? Because it's kind of internal HR. I do think you raise a very important point about what people can be told, because, of course, in criminal justice, it's only public when somebody's charged, so there's a period of investigation. And once the charge emerges, then we go public so that justice can be seen to be done. So there is a tricky question there.
But that didn't used to be the case. In the old days, if a Member of Parliament was arrested, the Speaker of the House made a report to the House as soon as it happened. And I always thought that was a better system because the public ought to know, shouldn't they?
But what if the person's innocent?
Well, we have to reinforce the view of innocent until proved guilty.
Yeah.
What I think has happened is we've covered it up, and then everyone thinks we must be guilty because otherwise we'd have told... So I think we have lost the idea of innocent until proved guilty by default.
We have really lost that. And people, why I really think this is an important story is people get trashed by these bodies. So if I think back to the Gambling Commission and what they did to me, trashed, accused of something that I was totally innocent of. And you know, 2 years on, still in the process of holding them to account. Did you know, for your former Conservative colleagues, both Conservative activists, a former MP, policemen, it's 2 years on since some of them they were charged in proceedings that are live, and there are 37 members of the Gambling Commission staff working on those cases at the cost of over $3 million a year.
And you just put a perfectly legal bet on, so you shouldn't have had any problem with them at all.
Yeah.
on your own election campaign, but you couldn't possibly know how voters were going to
just for
were
fun.
going to vote.
And, you know, lives, hopes get destroyed, and the same as these stories today. You know, we have lost innocent till proven guilty in this country.
I do think this point about the power of regulators is so relevant, and particularly when you point out they're investigating themselves. There's so much reform needed there. First of all, bring them back into underneath the jurisdiction of ministers.
But scrap some of the regulations, because aren't we just massively over-regulated?
Well,
doesn't the Information Commission have too much power, and aren't data protection rules just slightly loopy?
Absolutely right, yes, they are. And this general point that people now live under arbitrary power because the regulators have so much discretion in what they can do to us all.
And unlimited funding. So, I mean, if you're fighting them, you're paying your legal bills, but they can tap up the taxpayer for as much as they want.
What about if you're a person with no means to legal support?
And it's a very good point that you make also about what happened to you, because with regulators and their powers, no one really cares until it's happened to them or somebody they care about. And this is, I think, a responsibility on politicians to care in advance about the systematic risks.
And the regulators try and keep it secret. And this, again, seems to me most unsatisfactory. I worry that parliamentary investigations are all completely secret, so people can't defend themselves, even after it's leaked that they are under investigation.
And on that point, Jacob, viewers and listeners may or may not care about it because politicians are so unpopular, but in the last decades, there are plenty members of Parliament who have been very, very badly treated at the hands of the regulatory authorities that influence their futures. But you know, the Speaker needs to look at it.
All right. Well, thank you very much to my panel. An Information Commission office spokesman said, during the workplace investigation, our utmost focus was protecting the well-being and confidentiality of those sharing their personal experiences with the investigator, as well as the integrity of the process itself. For that reason, while we kept our recognised trade unions informed, we chose not to split our infinitives to proactively announce the investigation, a decision that was kept under regular review. As the regulator for both privacy and transparency, we considered the balance carefully throughout. Yeah, they thought about it carefully to cover it up. Brilliant. Coming up in just a moment, as Britain enjoys 93 degrees sunshine, an extreme weather warning has been issued. But what is the proper etiquette for managing a heat wave? It is, of course, a long, preferably alcoholic drink and a double-breasted suit. Thank you very much.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Became the norm. Friends just became family, and you know, I just kind of found my love in the streets, really.
And then did that then lead to stuff with knives?
Yeah, so I was stabbed by 15, and then my best friend passed away in my arms from a stab to the heart. So I'd already had quite a experience with knife crime at that point.
I think in life it's important to give people a second chance, and especially when you come back and you were using this to such a positive thing, and actually, and you know, your kits already, as you say, have saved several lives, and hopefully it's not even about the saving of lives in that sense, is it? It's if you can prevent people from getting in the situation you were in the first place.
This is where education's important.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A crew of injured and wounded veterans and serving personnel have completed a historic sailing expedition around the UK, carrying the Invictus Games flag.
Yes, it's called the Full Circle Sailing Expedition, and it embarked on a momentous 12-week journey, having sailed 2,000 miles around the UK to complete the whole full circle.
Well, it supported more than 500 injured veterans, and the charity is raising £300,000 to fund their mission to support veterans right across the nation.
Everybody on that boat has a part to play. It's, you know, everybody gets involved in safely moving that boat from A to B, and like you said, it's that camaraderie and being a part of a team, and you could say, to some extent, having that mission.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
come here? Is it a love for the royal family, for the kind of the British pageantry? What is it?
You know what? Both of those things. I do have a love for the British royal family. I have been royal watching since I was in the 5th grade. That was a long time ago. I watched Indian Style when Lady Di married then Prince Charles, and now he's the king. And I mean, I just love the parade troops, all of that. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely amazing.
Which royals do you think you're most looking forward to seeing as that procession comes down the mall a little bit later?
I want to see the king. I love seeing the king and the queen because I'm of that era, actually. The Prince Charles, King Charles era. So I always look forward to seeing the king, but of course the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Well, I think you're going to have a very easy job spotting you in the crowd.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, Britain enjoys 93-degree sunshine. Actually, I think the highest we reached was 97 degrees, which I think is comparatively cool considering the experiences of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. But an extreme weather warning has been issued. So what is the proper etiquette for Britons in managing a heat wave?
When it gets really hot, Daddy does not wear shorts and a T-shirt. I don't think I've ever seen that, ever. I don't think anyone's ever seen that.
I might have dug out my white suit like the man from Del Monte.
His lovely white suit probably doesn't come out often enough.
So the answer is have a long drink, opt for beer or cider, or the Pim's #1 cup rather than gin and wine, and if absolutely necessary, swap a dark suit for one akin to the man from Del Monte, but probably only if you're abroad or in the countryside. Well, I'm joined now by the etiquette expert, Diana Mather. Diana, thank you very much for joining me, and I'm very glad to see you're properly dressed in this really temperate climate. What are your thoughts on how people should behave in the heat?
Well, it does depend where they work, of course, and what they're doing, because if you have a dress code, then you should really adhere to that dress code, as you do, Jacob, absolutely, always. But on the other hand, if one's going to expire in the heat, then perhaps the white version and lighter. You see, if I get too hot, I can take off my scarf, but I'll still be perfectly dressed. But I think when people go to extremes, in France, apparently there is now a law that's going to fine men who walk down the street topless. And I'm all in agreement with that, because normally they don't look their best.
I think that's absolutely right. And also, you could say on health and safety grounds they should be forced to wear a shirt, ideally a coat and tie as well, because they'll probably get very badly burnt going around bare-chested in this sort of weather.
Absolutely. And then they're going to end up in hospital, and it's going to be a charge on the NHS. Now, I think as I say, to be serious, it does depend where you work. But just because it's hot, there is no need to come in, for instance, in flip-flops. I see people walking around London in flip-flops. Again, that's extremely dangerous. And most people's toes are not their best part. So I think you have to always think of others when you're dressing and the effect that you have on them. So to expose flesh that isn't normally exposed, especially in the office, is probably not the best thing to do.
And do you think people should basically just keep calm and carry on? That the British built an empire in some of the hottest climates in the world, and now the mercury gets up into the 90s and we're all wilting. It's just sort of a bit pathetic, isn't it?
You see, we do live in a world where there's more air conditioning these days. We're not, when I was brought up, there was no air conditioning and not much heating. So I've got a very good built-in thermostat. But not everybody has that. And I think people now don't tolerate the conditions. And if you have got central air conditioning at home, that's fantastic. But you go in and out of shops and it's very cold in the shop, and then you come out into the heat. That's not particularly good for you either. So I think that always think about how you're going to look. Just because one feels, I'm so hot, I'm just going to practically take everything off, that's not going to be necessarily what other people want to see. So be respectful is the best etiquette.
And what's your view about hats? Do you think we should dig out our solar topies and our Panamas and put them on in this weather?
Well, actually, I do love hats, although I tend to lose them or leave them on trains. But they are very good for shielding the face. And I was brought up, you know, in an era where we just went sun, sun, sun. So now I'm a bit more particular, and a hat can look fantastic. And I love hats on men.
Excellent. Well, Diana, thank you very much for keeping standards up. I'm now going to ask my panel if they can manage the same. Now, the tieless Mr. Baker.
Oh, Sir Jacob, I can only apologise that I abandoned my tie. I'm ashamed to sit here with you, but I shall assure you that next time it's hot, I shall wear my tie when I come on.
Oh, yes, we have got some AI images of me, which I mustn't forget. I think one of me drinking a glass of Pimm's. Was this at your birthday party? I'm asking my producer, who had a splendid 30th birthday party last week.
What do you do when you go through security at the airport?
I take my coat off and it's got all my coins in it, and I do reveal my braces, which is very bad form otherwise. Kevin, you're always properly dressed?
Yeah, would you ever wear that white linen suit on the show, Jacob, if it stays warm?
No. No, I occasionally wear it to Lord's.
Yeah.
But I think when I've been to Lord's for the cricket and then been doing the programme, I've changed into proper clothes before coming onto the programme.
I thought it was a nice touch. It was very Miami Vice. Do you know that show?
I've heard of it. Yeah. It's a long time ago.
And the last thing at the moment, some of us in this climate, Jacob, Englishmen, don't wear socks. Your thoughts on that?
I can't imagine not wearing socks.
Oh, well.
You said carefully English men.
Yeah.
Including you. Oh, my goodness.
Sorry.
So Kevin has his tie, but no socks. No, I can't imagine. You've got socks on.
I have got socks on. Of course I've got socks on.
I think we just need to maintain standards. I hate this bossy advice from the government. I mean, it's hot. Yes, of course. Therefore, drink a little bit of water. Yes, of course. Don't go wild on the alcohol. No, but do have a nice drink, because it's fun to have a nice drink in the hot weather.
Well, yeah, but I think there's a good place for the nanny state in this hot weather, Jacob, because you need to remind people to do the basics, unfortunately.
But they're not that stupid.
I think people can be very stupid, actually.
You see, I don't think they are. Well, I think
no.
Isn't that typical socialism?
Isn't it?
Yes, we trust the people.
Look at the Brexit vote.
And the socialists want to run their lives for them.
Oh, awful. No, people must learn to cope with ordinary life. I mean, this is a dreadful thing. We've ended up that we're not even expecting parents to bring up their children to cope with ordinary life. It's awful. I wonder where it all leads. But no, people can be expected to wear appropriate clothes and take a drink.
And aren't we giving the wrong message to children when we're closing schools? That as soon as something becomes a little bit difficult, you give up, you go home. Whereas actually, some days it will be cold, some days it will be hot, and you just carry on.
Yeah, it's so important that we become a bit more robust and cope with things as they come up. You know, how would we ever have won the Second World War if it happened today if we can't cope with things? And I do think that young people would rise to the challenge, but we do need to create the environment whereby we're a bit more robust and can cope.
Right, this is really important, though, robust and the environment. The reality is that this country that we love is not currently set up for the temperatures that we are going to have to be accustomed to. So one of the reasons why the clothing becomes an item is not all of our homes have air conditioning, right? We are moving towards Mediterranean temperatures.
And the government regulations, which are our fault as much as yours, militate against installing air conditioning, which is completely crazy.
Well, I mean, that's a whole different discussion because...
But it's quite an important one.
Well, we've also got solar panels that many local authorities are providing people free of charge, which I think you're probably against, yet there's more sun...
I'm not against solar panels.
No? Okay.
I don't think solar panels covering our farm yards are going to provide enough electricity for us. But if people want to put them on the roof of their house and then use air conditioning from them, that's great.
Yeah. I'm against subsidy. Thing to do. It's subsidy.
Yes,
I'm against.
Subsidy, I mean,
we need abundant energy. Abundant energy is absolutely fundamental to human flourishing.
Agreed.
Yeah, but the problem is, with all the renewables, they're all intermittent, so you have to cover them with gas, and then you're paying for both. And then on we go, we pay people to produce electricity and not use it. And
So if we are getting hotter, we need to allow people to take the steps that allow them to be comfortable.
Right.
And I understand that London council's going around telling people to take their air conditioning down.
Well, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it's in the papers today.
I think solar, this is interesting, you know, more solar powers, more panels, more access to solar panels in supermarkets. We're going to need it.
I see there's a picture of me sunbathing, which must be AI-generated, because I don't think I've ever sunbathed in my life. The human solar panel, yes, I think that's a very good idea.
I've known you quite a while now, Jacob, and I still can't imagine you sunbathing.
No, I think if I was sunbathing anyway, it'd be in a tweed suit, because then I would be
I'd love to take you
outside
sailing
London.
at Wildwind on a catamaran and see if you still wear a tweed suit and a buoyancy aid.
Something like that. It might get a little bit damp in the spray.
Right.
Excellent. Well, I think we have put the world to rights very satisfactorily. It's all the fault of not having proper energy policy. We need to get some fracking going so we can have the gas-powered stations, and that's brilliant. Patrick, we've solved all the world's problems. Can you solve any more?
Well, possibly. Yes, Jacob. Look, there's loads on tonight. We are going to be talking about the new information that's come out from police about Henry Novak. It took them 8 minutes to find out that he had been stabbed. And then, even then, managed to somehow make his condition even worse. So we're going to be discussing all of that. Also, Labour's new tax raid as well. Completely and utterly spiteful, taking money off you, off your kids, off your grandkids. Absolutely horrific. And Kevin Badenoch got into a little bit of bother in the House of Commons today for frankly saying the truth. If Labour don't like, you know, mean words, then maybe they should stop calling Tories scum or complaining that Brexiteers are even worse than Nazis. They don't like it up 'em, do they?
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, hope you're doing okay. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. And now the extreme heat, the record-breaking heat, will continue through this evening, overnight and into tomorrow. High pressure continuing to bring largely fine weather, lots of sunshine by day, and we are tapping into, dragging in hot air from the near continent, which is why temperatures are so high, both by day and by night. We have a couple of extreme heat warnings out at the moment, an amber across much of England and Wales, and also a red one across some central southern parts of England and southern Wales, all valid until the end of Thursday. Looking at the weather, and there's some rain across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening and overnight. That's going to spill into parts of northern and western Scotland. Otherwise, it's going to be largely dry. There is some low cloud coming into some North Sea coastal parts. The odd pocket of mist and fog can't be ruled out. But one thing that we really need to highlight is how warm it is again going to be. Perhaps a bit fresher towards the east, but in the west, southwest, temperatures holding up a few degrees above 20 Celsius, so uncomfortable for sleeping. More wet weather across parts of northern, northwestern Scotland through tomorrow. The rain could turn a bit persistent, maybe even heavy at times. Across the rest of the country, however, again, it is going to be a largely sunny day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures are going to rise. Mid to high 30s, 38, 39 Celsius could be possible, which is exceptionally hot. Into Friday, and it's worth highlighting that there will be some hefty showery rain affecting some northern parts, particularly during the morning. A lot of that will clear away, but for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, that rain's going to linger here. Could be quite intense for a while. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine by the afternoon, and whilst there is something a little bit fresher coming in from the west, central eastern parts are going to stay very hot. In fact, into the weekend, eastern parts will still be pretty hot. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we'll see something a bit more changeable and more comfortable, perhaps.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello from the Imperial Island Resort in Paphos, and it's the final week to see how you could win big in time for summer. Someone has to win our stunning cash prize of £76,543.21. Just don't miss out as lines close on the 26th of June.
For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The news audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea, they'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today? What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family.
They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return?
The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see.
They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain. It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie's. Tonight.
Been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Well, new information today. Police took 8 minutes to find Henry Novak's stab wounds, and I have the full transcript of the footage that the police never wanted you to see. In other news. An Algerian national is jailed for 2 years after piloting an overcrowded small boat carrying 67 people across the channel. 2 years. Is that really a deterrent? And?
Man City game. I couldn't watch Man City game. Come on. What's happening?
How are you enjoying this hot weather?
Too hot.
Record temperatures, solar panels melt, Wimbledon cancelled, schools have closed, but... Some plucky Brits stormed a French beach and reclaimed it for Britain because of the hot weather. Amazing. Also tonight...
Cheering so loudly while their 400 knives stuck in his back. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Kemi Badenoch had a massive row with Labour's Education Secretary today, and apparently they had afters in a corridor later. Good. Plus...
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Disgraceful. Reeves and Starmer are coming for your savings, and there will now be rape gang inquiries in Oldham, Bradford and London. On my panel tonight, we've got former Conservative Special Advisor James Price, Reform UK Councillor Jamie McIver and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. And can you spot the difference here?
Many, many, many generations.
My first allegiance is and always will be the sovereign people of Scotland.
And there is a mystery involving a giraffe in Texas. Hopefully we can solve that later. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Brits stormed a French beach today. Next.
Good evening, it's 2 minutes past 9. I'm UK's hottest June day on record, with a new high of 36.1 degrees Celsius recorded in Gosport, Hampshire. A red weather warning for extreme heat is in place for parts of the country, with the Met Office advising the elderly and vulnerable to stay indoors and the public to reconsider lengthy travel plans. Humid conditions are also expected to persist well after sunset, bringing the prospect of tropical nights to parts of the UK where temperatures will remain above 20 degrees Celsius. Today's temperature breaks the previous record set in the summer of 1976. Elsewhere, more than 500 mothers and babies suffered potentially avoidable harm